they refused to even interview. They said they said that no, you are too from too wealthy a background. Those were the days, in fact, when I used to sign my own checks for the fees. So they thought, that this guy is never going to fit in to be a teacher. I would come to Delhi for a party, and someone would ask me, "So what do you do?" I'd say, "I'm a teacher." And the person would look over my shoulder and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've just seen someone I have to talk to," and he would walk up. Then one day, he would arrive on Sana Hill looking for his child. And then he'd see me and he'd say, "But you said you're a teacher." I said, "Yeah, I'm a teacher." "Oh, you never told us you're the headmaster." When I went to the village and lived there, uh, and I saw village life for the first time, I stood for election. I became the chairman of 102 villages. I saw that the middle class in the cities was suffering self-imposed problems. Only the middle class was stuck in that middle class syndrome. Leadership is rare. The final level of leadership, even our prime minister does not have, and that is to create leaders around him. His mother passed away; she was the educationist. The father and he had no idea about education. So the father said, "Will you please mentor him?" I said, "Of course, I'll mentor him." And today, what is the situation? I phone him and ask him that please help me.
In this podcast, I've talked to Maharaja Dr. Bahadur Singh Katoch. I really love this conversation because he is a person who has had more than 50 years of experience in the education industry. That's more than half a century. He comes from a royal lineage and he decided to become a teacher when he was in grade 9. He did not think whether the teaching profession was reputable enough, whether he would earn enough. He did not even care about his family. He sacrificed his inheritance so that he would pursue his passion for teaching. He is the current Maharaja of the Katoch clan, who are the descendants of Porus, who fought Alexander in 4th century BC. He has amassed such a wide range of experiences. He is an alumnus of the Doon School, Dehradun, and the St. Stephen's College, Delhi. He is currently the president of the Boarding Schools Association of India. Previously, he has served as the director for the best institutions in the country, which include Delhi College, Indore, and the Lawrence School, Sanawar. He has taught internationally at various schools, which include the Doon School, Gordonstown, Scotland, UWC Wales, St. Anne's, England, and many more. He's authored more than 7 books. He's also served as the chairman of 102 villages so that he could understand the problems of the poor. He has designed various schools and has taught and impacted the lives of millions of students. Now you can just imagine how much can you learn from a person who has such a wide range of experiences. You can only know when you watch this podcast. Building the leaders of tomorrow only on the Yuva podcast. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure entirely. Argun, you tell me.
So, firstly, I had listened to a lot of lectures by Dr. Sumir Bahadur Singh. I had been to Jodhpur for the IPSC Leadership Conclave, and there I heard Dr. Sumir Bahadur Singh's keynote. And I remember I was sitting in the last row of the auditorium at RKK GPS, and everybody from my delegation was fully engaged in your keynote. And I would say that it was the best keynote that we had heard that year, because we had been to a lot of events that year, and we now also, I have my seniors, we do talk about that keynote. It was amazing, sir.
Very kind of you to say that. Thank you.
So, sir, what have you been exploring these days? What are you doing these days?
In August, we have the Oxford MUN, which we bought rights to. So that's going to be in Pune at Flame University.
So, sir, first of all, I would like to ask you that how did you get into the education industry? That what engaged you into it? What motivated you to get into the education industry, or industry not so, but into the education field?
I decided to become a school teacher when I was in class 9, and I was studying at the Doon School. And I got inspired by one of my teachers, Mr. Baljit Singh Malik, who was a history teacher. He was the person who used to understand us and our problems, the students. And he made a big difference in the lives of many students just by being a good listener and encourager. Uh, so at that point, I decided that instead of making money, I would rather make a difference in the lives of students, and that I would become a school teacher in a boarding school. Of course, that is something which everyone thought was a passing phase, and that I would eventually go back to the land or go to industry or something. But no, I was very determined, and that's what I've done, and I'm very happy that I did it because it's given me a lot of satisfaction. I've been in touch with thousands of students, and I think I've touched a lot of them in terms of influencing them for the better, to be better human beings, and to be giving human beings, to be sensitive human beings. I think that's very important.
So that was the correct decision to make. And as you've been a DOSCO, you are a Doon School alumnus. So how did Doon School shape your decision, and how did it shape your teaching career? Did it have an effect on the career that you had?
No, it had no impact directly because after I decided to become a teacher, and after I graduated from Stephens, and I my first application was to Doon School, and they refused to even interview.
Oh,
They said that no, you are too from too wealthy a background. Those were the days, in fact, when I used to sign my own checks for the fees. So they thought, that this guy is never going to fit into being a teacher, and so they didn't interview. It was only after I had been teaching in Sanawar that they realized that I was serious about teaching, and then I got offered a post in Good School.
but why didn't they interview? Why that a wealthy? Why was that prejudice that a wealthy man cannot be a teacher?
I really don't understand it. I see. I had in the humanities, I had come first in India, so academically there was not a problem, and my sincerity and dedication was there. But I was told by the deputy headmaster, who had been my housemaster, that you are far too rich to adjust to teaching. So we are not going to waste our time interviewing you. I was in Dehradun, in fact, for the interview, but they didn't. So that was sad. Anyway, everything works out for the best.
Sir, but still, I feel that the gap that there is, ki most of the people, they want to be teachers. I have a lot of friends who want to be teachers, but the thing is that when you say that I want to be a teacher, you are like, if you are coming from a good school, you are coming from one of the best schools of India, you are saying that I want to grow up to be a teacher. It is not positively taken that you are getting such a good education and you're putting that into teaching, because generally, not I'm talking generally, that the teaching profession is not paid so well. So why is that? Why is that there a prejudice? Why is there a belief in the minds of people that a person who comes from a wealthy background, a person who comes from a good education, cannot become a teacher?
It's not that they're not paid well. It is just that, unfortunately, in India, it is almost a profession of last resort. A lot of men try for the civil services, they try for company jobs, and when they are not able to, they have already gone through their studies and attained a master's degree. So then it's easy to become a teacher and look after your family, give education to your kids. So it's like a second or third choice for the majority of people. And as far as the ladies are concerned, it's a safe outlet because they don't have to be the main income earners in the family. The second income which they are looking at, and it's nowadays it's so difficult to get children into school that if you're a teacher, that's one way to make sure that your children get educated well. So it's not a first priority profession, and therefore it just doesn't attract the right people. If you look at the salaries, I don't think the salaries are too bad. They may not be competitive with many other areas, but I'll tell you that when I was interviewing for business schools in Delhi and Ghaziabad, when I was at Daly College, I found that the pre-primary teachers whom we were appointing fresh were earning a higher salary than the people I was interviewing for the MBA program, who were working in the top IT software companies in India. So it was it's like IT movies. There is only one Amitabh Bachchan. There is only one person who makes it to the top. But there are thousands and thousands of aspirants who think they will make. Whereas teaching doesn't have that glam. But once you get to the senior levels in teaching, housemaster and beyond, the emoluments are quite good actually.
So, but don't you think that if teaching in India is, if you're talking about a general thing, if you're talking about the whole country, if it is taken as a last resort, as a profession, so don't you think that then the teaching profession is getting contaminated, and the teachers are the ones who are giving knowledge to the youth, and then consequently youth are going to be the ones who are going to lead the country forward, lead the world forward. So isn't there a contamination of sorts in the teaching profession?
Yes, it's true. And also, you can't look at the whole country as a whole because historically, you see, the north, where we are sitting now, has been an area which has been affected by invasions over hundreds of and thousands of years. And so the people in the north are more resilient as far as physical strength is concerned. Whereas the people in the south have actually enjoyed peaceful uh, development, which means that they have been able to devote time to cultural activities and education. And that is why, if we in the north measure wealth in terms of land, they measure wealth in terms of degrees that they uh, collect in education. So it's different in different parts of the country.
Okay, sir. So, sir, you yourself have been a part of the boarding school system. You are a product of a boarding school system. You are an alumnus of Doon School, and then you've gone to lead the best boarding schools of India. So, according to you, how do you think that the boarding school plays a role in the shaping of a child's future that a day boarding school cannot? How does a mental difference? How is a mental difference triggered, and how is a mental difference between a boarder and a day boarder?
I don't have much choice but to tell you it from the point of view. I'm the president of the Boarding Schools Association of India. I'm going to give a very positive spin for boarding. Now, boarding has some advantages and it has some disadvantages. One of the things one should understand is that when I was a boarder in Vellum Prep School, before it became a big school, uh, we had the first case of parents being divorced. I remember there was a boy from Calcutta. His parents got divorced, and it was the most traumatic experience for all of us in the school. We couldn't believe that someone, parents could actually separate and leave the child wondering what's going on. When by the time I moved to Lawrence School, Sanaa as the headmaster, about one third of the students were from broken families. So, you know, society had changed so much. And the reason why people were sending their children to boarding was not just for character building, not just for becoming independent, but also because they found that it was easier when the mother and father had separated. And this gave boarding a slightly different spin. But as far as I'm concerned, because in a boarding school you have all the time to be able to learn how to become a leader, learn true friendship, regardless of what your friends' parents do. And you have all the opportunities to explore your passions and discover what you are best at. So the advantages in boarding are huge. At the same time, we must remember that it's important that the boarder also gets good support as a family, because if the family does not give him time, he gradually grows away from the family. And that can be a negative thing. So, a good combination of the family and boarding school is the best education. That's the way it's been tested for thousands of years. I mean, whether you look at the Gurukul system, it was all residential. Whether you look at the Nalanda and other universities in India, which were the leading universities in the world, they were all residential. So, residential has been the way forward, and it's the same how we what we inherited from the UK, schools like Doon and YPS and all. We have basically modeled ourselves on the public school, the residential public schools of UK, and they have had a lot of advantage in being able to produce people with character. So I think we've had the same results, and certainly you can rely on a on a friend whom you have made in boarding much more than you can rely on someone you have befriended later on, because later on you've always got influenced by who he is or who his father is and what the advantages can be. In boarding, no one looks at it. You are just friends and you are friends for life. And we know now from all the research that has been done that the best way of being happy and leading a healthy and long life is to have good relationships with friends and family. So that is a very important part of boarding. The kind of friendships you can develop in boarding, you can never develop anywhere.
Right, sir. Sir, you mentioned the term residential public school. So we hear the term a lot. We hear that in Indian Public Schools Conference, that is IPSC. There also we have the public school world. So what exactly, according to you, does the word residential public school mean? What is its definition?
See, residential is the correct word, not boarding. Boarding used to be there, it's no longer there. Boarding means eating. The dining part is boarding, and the staying part is lodging. That's why you have board and lodge. Now we have moved to central dining halls, and it is more a question of residential rather than boarding. I mean, the idea is to stay in the school. As far as public is concerned, it's a very simple thing that it is a school which is open to anyone on merit. That is a public.
Okay, sir. So the schools, for example, Doon School, Delhi College, those are also public schools. I'm coming from a very layman's perspective, and you also have other schools which are marketed, local schools which are marketed as public school dash public school. So what exactly is the difference between the both?
See, I've again got to be a little prejudiced because I've been chairman of the Indian Public Schools Conference. But it's essentially public, as I said, means it's a private school open to everyone on merit. But then, because public schools became famous, like convents became famous for education. So a lot of schools took on the convent or the public, and now they are taking on international. Even if they're sitting in one small village, they still call themselves international schools or groups. So these are fads. These are passing fashions. It's got nothing to do with whether you actually have, you know, even the government schools now. A lot of them are called public, and a lot of them are members of the public schools. So it's a very confusing thing. But public, as I told you, means a private school open to all on merit.
Okay, sir. So, as we've discussed that residential schools, they impact a person's personality a lot. They do have an impact because of the friendships that you form, and we've seen that a lot of the big personalities of the world, they have been schooled in residential schools. So, sir, according to you, that this system has been there for many years and it has produced amazing results. So, leading towards the future, what do you think will be the future? As you said, you are the president of, I knew before, although, that you are the president of BSAI, Boarding Schools Association of India. So, according to you, what do you see what do you think is the future of boarding schools, especially in India?
See, boarding schools have a excuse me, they have a bright future because they have a lot to offer. And the change that's coming is that previously boarding schools were divided into three categories. Either you had boys boarding, girls boarding, or co-education. Gradually, there is a shift all over the world to move from single sex boarding to co-education. That is the change that's going to, and that is a change which is good because it is something which is more natural to grow up with boys and girls together. The relationships developed are healthy, and they also allow the parents to send their daughters and sons to the same school rather than sending them to two separate schools. So I, in fact, I mean, right now, Doon School is in the process of looking at turning co-educational. Let's see what happens, but it's for that reason that it's more natural. Otherwise, they're not short of students; they have enough applications. But it is felt that co-education boarding is the future.
Sir, I have one point regarding boarding schools. I had it earlier in my mind, but then I forgot that I have not stayed in a boarding school. I've not been a boarder in a school. But I've stayed at boarding houses for weeks because of some conference, because of some work at my school as well. So one problem that I always face at when I'm residing in a school is flexibility. I'm a very flexible person. I like to if I am focused on leadership, I'm focused on public speaking. I have my own time. If I'm giving 4 hours to public speaking, or if I'm giving 4 hours to computer programming on one evening at my home, that is not at all possible if I'm residing in a school or if I'm living in a boarding school. So there's always a problem with flexibility. So as we move into the future, students are going to want more and more flexibility because they want to do their own thing. So how what do you have to say on this?
No, it's not the same in all schools. Some schools are less flexible, some are more flexible. For example, uh, you need your early years in a boarding school to be able to discover what your interests are and what you're good at. So, if you have a passion and you have a talent and you are able to give time to it, you will be able to achieve something. All three things are required: the talent and to be able to put in that extra effort. You're not going to be able to achieve anything without that extra effort. To give put in that extra effort, you need time, and therefore, when you are a junior, you should explore all the activities possible. And once you become a senior, then you should be allowed to specialize in whatever your interest area is. Because eventually, the argument is between an all rounder and a specialist. So there are some students who are more suited to be all rounders because they don't really have a special interest. And there are some students who are very clearly uh, aware of what they want to do. So they must be given that time. So within the boarding school situation, that flexibility will depend upon the school to school and head to head and board to board and so on.
Sir, I agree with that point. Sir, usually the boarding school children or the boarding school are always kept on a pedestal, and that pedestal needs to be there. That is rightly so, because the personalities that boarding schools develop in the students, they are magnificent. I've met boarders from all over India, and I've seen that the things that boarding school instills in them. indirectly or directly, it takes them to higher heights, it takes them to the sky. But the question that I want to ask you is that what exactly is there in a boarding house? Obviously they do the personality grooming, the grooming is there, but what are the two elements, what are the two or three elements in a boarding school that shape the person as we see these days, as the personality is shaped? What are the three elements?
Okay, let me ask you a question. That secularism is something which India believes in. We believe that whichever religion you follow or whichever part of the country you come from, basically we are all the same, we are all equal, and we need to be to understand that we are all equal and to encourage it. Now, which two institutions have been left secular in this country? There are only the defense forces and the boarding school. This is the value of the boarding school and the defense forces, that they are continuing to hold the flag up for secularism. If you don't believe in secularism, that's another matter. But I do, and I think it's very important that we keep religion in our homes as a private affair. We don't go around screaming and shouting about our religion being better than.
So sir, do you mean to say that you were saying something?
No,
So
tell
do
me.
you mean to say that it is acceptance, and it is that acceptability and the feeling of oneness in a boarding school that propels the border forward?
It's not acceptance. See, acceptance is a negative term. It's a very positive characteristic of boarding, that we all embrace each other actively. We don't tolerate. We actually promote. That's the.
Very rightly said, sir. So sir, I want to talk to you about the future of education. As we know that the way of education is changing at a rapid speed these days. Earlier it used to be only textbooks, now the NEP is there, and now a lot of companies, a lot of institutions are revolutionizing how the youth is being educated. We have MU20, we have Masters Union, who are focusing more on the practical aspect, that it should not only be textual learning, it needs to be experiential learning, it needs to be practical learning. So what is your view on that? Because you yourself, as far as I think you, because you had completed an education at least 40 years ago. So that time the education was completely different, and now the education is completely different. How do you compare the both?
See, I completed my education 50 years. I've been a teacher for 50 years. I've been a principal for 23. So my time was different in the sense that it was the first school in India where we had a liberal arts program, where humanities was an important aspect, where service was important. Whereas in most schools, what happens is that we are looking at science and commerce. Humanities was kept away from us by the British because they didn't want us to become leaders. They wanted us to become followers. When we discovered the importance of humanities, it's becoming more and more popular now, and combination of subjects and experiential learning is taking us in a different direction. I was lucky that this was there in my school then, but yeah, it's not there in many schools. What is happening now is the horrible thing that's happening is tuition. We had no tuitions in my and these bad competitive exams and the training for these exams and people committing suicide because they don't qualify for whatever they're trying for. This competitiveness uh, is sad. It's not a nice thing to see in the youth. We had a very relaxed time, and we had a lot of time to explore and see what interested us, to go mountaineering, to go fishing, to travel within the country. Now, no one wants to travel in the country, everyone's wanting to go abroad. So times have changed. I don't think education as such has benefited by all these changes. I think the population is just too much. The pressures are too much.
So, sir, these competitive exams, I was talking to in an earlier episode, I was talking to Professor Jeevan Jyoti Chakrabarti. He's a professor at IIT Kharagpur. He was talking to me that the way, as you just said, that the way these competitive exams are functioning, it is just sad because it is actually sucking the potential away from the Indians. The potential that we have, it can be applied in a lot of different fields. But every year, 10 lakh students appear for JEE, 10 lakh appear for NEET, and various other competitive exams. So, according to you, what is the exact negative impact that these competitive exams have on the students, and how can these be mitigated if they can be mitigated?
You see, they can be mitigated if you change the thought process and the opportunity. Like right now, what are the job opportunities which people are chasing? In my time, it was either you join government or you join the army or you joined a commercial organization. Uh, there were not too many people looking at entrepreneurship. Today, the best opportunities are in entrepreneurship. Starting up something small, even if you are from a village school, it is more beneficial for you to train to become a carpenter or a fitter or a electrician, where you can earn very well today. It's a very lucrative profession to be in, and you're your own boss. After you learn the rope, you start your own business. You take on other apprentices, then they move out, they start their own businesses. This is how we need to grow. If everyone is going to try and go for the same jobs, uh, that's where the problem. And today, anything you do, anything that you like doing, if you follow, you can make a profession out of it. There is nothing which can't be a profession. So why are people all going for the same things? And I always encourage my students to go for whatever they want to go for, not to be influenced by their parents or by their teachers, because too often what happens is that we parents have not been able to achieve something, and we want to see our children achieve what we didn't achieve. They are not supposed to lead our dreams. They have to live their own dream. And there are, if entrepreneurship is given more importance in school, there will be a sea change in the attitude people have. Today, no one wants to become an electrician or a carpenter. Even they'd rather become a babu in a government office where there is no future, there is no dignity, there's nothing, and there's certainly not as much money. Why? Because they say, शादी कौन करेगा, इज्जत क्या होगा.
Yes.
Yeah, if we are going to keep chasing izzat and things like that rather than practicality, we're going to carry on hitting our heads against the wall. But there are enough opportunities if we have a change of attitude.
Sir, I was reading about you on the internet. I read that you have spoken in a lot of other countries about global leadership. So I wanted to ask you that you just described the state of India in education, that parents force what they could not become, they want their children to become that, and it's just a forceful system all around. I have 10 friends who are just studying sciences because their parents forced them to. They wanted to take up humanities, they wanted to study philosophy, they wanted to study business studies. So is it the same in the other countries? Is it the same in Europe? Is it the same in the US?
No, it's not. I'll tell you why it's not. Because in India, we have a very strong family system, and we have a lot of value attached to families. So parents continue to look after their children and encourage them and also support them till the time they get a job. But in many countries, including the USA, once you have finished college, the parents' responsibility they feel is over. Now you're on your own. Go out and find yourself an income, find yourself a house, find yourself a profession, and don't expect money from the parents because they're going to be looking at it for their own future. And you see, with life expectancy for the people who are now in nursery and LKG, their life expectancy is going to be 100 years. And yet, we talk about retiring at the age of 60. So, if you're going to study for the first 25, 20 years at least, and then you're going to work for 40 years, and then you're going to be retired for the next 40 years, you need money, right? Don't have money to give to your kids. You tell them you better become independent. So there is this huge difference in family values.
Sir, obviously, the family system has affected the current state of the Indian education system. But how has the history of India and how has the history of Indian education impacted the current system that we are studying in today?
See, what is the ancient system? The ancient system is not just looking at gurukuls from a point of view of a transformative education. They provide. They didn't. It was not a transactional. Transactional is today, where you pay a fees, you go and attend classes, you listen to lectures. The school feels they've done their job. The parents feel they've done their job. You feel you've done your job. In the earlier times, the Gurukul system, you didn't pay a fees. You lived in a residential community where the Guru was also there. And it is only when he felt that you are ready that he told you that, okay, now you carry on with life. You have achieved what I can help you with. And it was for the parents to decide whether they wanted to give the Guru what they wanted to give the Guru. It was not a transactional system at all. And if you look at the specialization that took place as a result of this, because the Guru Shishya Parampara in India meant that the Guru had to try and make sure that his Shishya turned out to be better than him. See, that was his aim. That is something which we've lost, but that's what the aim was. But we haven't lost it in some areas, like, for example, in dance, in music, in crafts. There are still uh, guilds and there are still gurus and there are still schools of dance and schools of art where the guru is spending all the time trying to make sure that their students excel beyond their own what they excel. So that is there only in India. You won't find this anywhere else, where a guru is trying to make sure that you become better than him. But it is got restricted now to just a few professions, and it's mainly in the arts and crafts. In the case of business, it is something which has been passed on from family to family. The same is in jewelry. The same is in martial arts and the defense forces. There are families which are proud that so many of us have been in the army or have been in the air force, and the tradition carries on. So this kind of specialization, which at one time was called the caste system, is actually the true specialization, the true caste system, not what we today say, low caste and upper caste, and who's to say who's what caste? Yeah, you have a profession, and you could change your profession as many times as you wanted to. There was nothing to stop you from doing that. If you were a barber, you could become a soldier. If you were a soldier, you could become a Brahmin, a teacher. You could do anything. Now we tend to try and keep people compartmentalized for political reasons. It's the politics of the country which is dividing the country. It is religion which is dividing the country rather than uniting the country. So these are parts of our changing civilization in it.
Sir, in fact, it's so clear that the people who were the warriors, they were called Kshatriyas. The people who were who read spiritual texts, they were called Brahmins. So exactly, there was no caste divide that you are lower or you are. It was just based on the means of occupation, as you just said. Sir, now I want to ask you that you have led the best institutions of the country. So you have, as is told, that you have the experience of 50 years. So that's half a century. So I want to distill what you learned while leading the best schools of India about education, about personality, about your own self. What did you learn?
See, the most important lessons that I have learned, I'll share with you. One is that I believe that, God is a great producer and director of plays, and He keeps producing plays left, right, and center. And He casts us in different roles. And our roles keep changing. It's not like the Indian movies where once you're a villain, you're a villain in all the movies. You can keep changing. Sometimes you're a good guy. Sometimes you're a bad guy. Sometimes you're a very important person. Sometimes you're not. What unfortunately happens is that a lot of people who get to a particular position, they begin to think they are that, but they're not that. They're in a play. So, for example, let's take me. If I decide that I'm the principal of a school, therefore I'm somebody special because I'm the principal of, then that's very stupid of me because I'm not anything special. God has given me a role to play, and He's given me this role to play, which is with a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. Because if I have been given the role of principal, it means that there are so many people who's who are dependent on me for their happiness and progress. And am I going to be able to fulfill that? It's a huge responsibility. So, one is to realize that service is more important than designation and pride. The second lesson that I have learned is because I was lucky, I went to good schools and colleges, and I came from a family which had everything that we could want. That I had two experiences which made me a sensitive human being. One is when I went to the village and lived there uh, when I was, I think, about 23, 24, 25 years old. And I saw village life for the first time. I saw the difference in the value systems people had. I saw that the middle class in the cities was suffering a kind of a self imposed problem where they wanted to do everything right. Whereas the rich and the poor in the cities don't bother about it. It's only the middle class who are stuck in that middle class syndrome. In the villages, it's not like that. In the villages, everyone is free. And I realized that, a lot of things which we took for granted are actually not true. I stood for election. I became the chairman of 102 villages. And I learned a lot. That was one experience that was there for me. The second was when I became a teacher and my family gave me a choice that either you take over the land, take a factory, or you become a teacher, but you can't do both things. So I got disinherited, and I went through a very difficult period financially. And I also then realized that the people who I thought were close to me, who would support me, uh, in fact, were not so supportive. So it taught me a lot about human nature, the village experience, and this experience. And I therefore believe seriously that unless you have gone through some bad times, you really cannot understand how to be sensitive and empathetic to people who are not as fortunate.
Those are really deep words, sir. Sir, as you said that when you chose to become a teacher, so you went through a phase that when you were not very financially secure. So you come from a very good-to-do family. You come from a wealthy background. So how did it feel that you were coming from such a good background? You got an education from the Doon school, everything on a pedestal, and then you were facing financial problems when you chose the teaching field.
See, I have no regrets because on my own, whatever I have achieved is more than enough for me and my family. So I didn't have to inherit anything from my parents, which I did. And I'm quite comfortable financially and in any other way.
No, no, I'm talking about at that time. Now you are obviously, you've achieved a lot. You are obviously confident, but at that time, how did it feel? That did you get a doubt in your mind that did I do something wrong?
No, no, no. There was no doubt in my mind at all. It was sad. The sad part was not that I was suffering. The sad part was to see that there were people who were not as true uh, in terms of their friendship. People who could help were not willing to help. I mean, it's part of life. Like for example, I'll tell you that I would when I was head of Sana. Now Sana doesn't have a principal; it's a headmaster. I was about 35 years old, and I would go to Delhi for my vacation with my wife, staying with my mother-in-law, and we would attend parties like everybody does because we had friends in Delhi, lots of friends, school friends, college friends, other friends. So go and attend a party, and Delhi is it's like a small village in terms of the social structure because it's all closed groups. They all live within their own groups. So the first thing that they would ask me when they would see me is, "What do you do?" The first question is, "What do you do?" The second question, if I had given a decent answer, which they found interesting, teaching. The minute I said teacher, they lose it. If I had said something interesting, they would have said, "Where do you live? Which part of Delhi do you live?" And if they then got to the next stage, they would ask, "Which car do you drive?" Delhi's like that. I've also lived in Calcutta. They're not bothered who you are. They're not bothered what your position is. They're not bothered how rich or poor you are. They like you, they like you. They don't like you, they don't. So it's a different society. Now, I would come to Delhi for a party and someone would ask me, "So what do you do?" I'd say, "I'm a teacher." And the person would look over my shoulder and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I've just seen someone I have to talk to." And he would walk up because now he's lost interest. But who the hell is going to spend time talking to a teacher? Yeah? What am I going to get out? Right. Then one day he would arrive on Sana Hill looking for admission for his child. And then he'd see me and he'd say, "But you said you're a teacher." I said, "Yeah, I'm a teacher." "But you never told us you're the headmaster." So I said, "You never asked me what my designation was. You asked me what I do, and I told you I'm a teacher." Same thing happened when my wife was suspected. Fortunately, it wasn't a problem. But she went there. With, the doctors had said the minute you get pain, or the minute you, first of all, you'll get toast and tea within 10 minutes of your reaching the room. But if you get any kind of pain, you have to tell the nurse outside, and immediately she will let us know and we'll come. There was no toast, there was no tea. I was not allowed to be with her, but I insisted on staying with her because I said there's nothing, no one seems to be. She got the pain. I told the nurse outside, no doctor came. So it was a shock. What's going on? This is supposed to be the best heart specialty hospital in Delhi, and this is what they're doing. So I said, forget it, yaar. I told my wife, I said, now just let's go. I can't leave you here tonight because I don't know what's going to happen. No one's going to look after you. So we just walked out of the hospital and there was a commotion because here was a patient walking off in a gown with a halter attached and getting into the car and going. So the news got to the owner. Now the owner was also a Doon school boy. He was also a friend of mine. So he phoned. He said, "Sumer, what have you done? Everyone's talking about how you've taken your wife and just walked out of the hospital." So I said, "I don't think the problem is me. I think the problem is you and your hospital. Why did no one pay any attention?" So I told him, I said, I asked the doctor because I know the doctor. I said, why didn't you, you know, look after her? He said, but no one told us anything. So I asked the administrator of the hospital. I said, why did you not send your nurse to look after my wife when she was having pain? He said, I haven't inaugurated that floor as yet. How did you get occupancy of a room on that floor? I haven't inaugurated it. He was a retired general. So I said, General, it's not a matter of inauguration. It's a matter of a patient. You should. He said, no, the fault is yours. So I said, why is the fault mine? He said, I looked at your form that you filled up when you admitted your wife, and it says profession, and you wrote teaching. So I said, that is my profession. He said, but you never mentioned you were the headmaster. If I'd known you were the headmaster of Sanaa, I would have treated you differently. So I said, but why? I'm paying the same fees. I've not asked you for a concession. I'm paying the full fees. How can you treat me differently if whether I'm the headmaster or whether I'm a teacher? What is this? Then Mr. Nanda said all the doctors, everyone will line up to apologize. I said, why? The doctors are not at fault. It's your system that is at fault. This is the reason I'm saying all this is that this is India. You are treated differently according to who you are. This has to go. Why is it there? And who's promoting it? It's the politician. The politician will walk in, will give reservation to people who have got 20% in the exam over people who got 80% of the exam and make them doctors. Then they'll go to AIMS and say, oh, quota wala doctor mat dena. Why? What is it? We need to change our whole attitude. Education system, the opportunities for employment, everything will change if we change our attitude.
But why is this attitude there in the first place?
It's been promoted by first by the British when they were here. It wasn't there during the Hindu-Muslim period. It was during the British period where they were the Sabs. They were not part of us. They were superior to us in terms of their own thinking and their designations and their salaries and whoever they wanted to favor. Then, when Indians occupied those positions, they decided that they also were superior. And today, if you look at India, I'm not saying that every politician or every district collector is a negative person, but a lot of them have a very you know inflated opinion of themselves, and we accept it and we cater to it and we run around them. We are the ones encouraging it.
So while telling me the first story, when you talked about going to parties in Delhi, I've noticed this that you also rightly mentioned that it is there in the north. This prejudice is there in the north that if you are a teacher, if you are not at a good post, we won't respect you as much. When you go to the west or you go to the south, I've stayed with people from the south, from Tamil Nadu, from Karnataka. Their attitude is completely different. For example, in Punjab, in the northern states, even in Delhi, we like to brag our cars, we like to brag what we own, we like to brag our power. But in South India or in West India, sorry, in East India, sorry, rather West Bengal side. So this thing is not there. They simply don't care about this. For them, everything is equal. Yet we are all the citizens of the same country. So why this difference?
I told you earlier when we were talking about this, I told you that the North has faced invasion after invasion. Our priority has been strength and land and money. The South and West Bengal area have had comparative peace and therefore cultural advancement has taken place. Culture can only flourish in peaceful times. And so education and the accumulation of degrees for them is like the accumulation of land for us in the north. It's a cultural thing.
you've led the best schools in India. You've been the chairman of IPSC. Now you are the president of BSAI. So if I ask you three pointers that made you a better leader, or what you would like to tell to the youth, that these are the three pointers, or even more, that would make you a better leader, or let's just say, what are the three pillars of leadership? What are the basic things that a leader needs to have?
But first of all, he has to be down to earth, modest person. He should not get carried away with his own importance. Because if he does that, he's never going to be a. The second is that he has to be empathetic to the needs of the people whom he is responsible. And if he can improve the quality of life of the people who he is responsible for and the quality of the organization that he is heading, then he becomes a leader. And the final level of leadership, uh, even our prime minister does not have, and that is to create leaders around. See, mentorship is the final level of leadership. The minute you can start creating leaders of the people who are working with you and make them independent leaders in their own right, then you have reached the final level of. In India, it's very rare.
But it is very difficult to reach that you yourself are the leader, or even if we relate this to the teaching profession, that you yourself are the established authority, but still you are having enough compassion for your followers, for the people that you are working with, it, that to be, matlab, you can also get to my level, you can also be my equal, or you can surpass me, even in the teaching world. So this is very rare to be seen, and in fact, even if
It is rare. That's why leadership is rare. That is why leadership is rare. It is something which unfortunately is the result of people not being confident of their own self. When I am not confident of myself, I will make sure that all the people around me are kept at a lower level, that they are suppressed. Anyone who's good, anyone who's showing promise, I will remove. And I will keep people around me who will be dependent on me. That is the lack of leadership.
but it seems very difficult to develop, because as you just said the statement, it caught me wondering. I'm putting myself in that situation, that if I am the leader of a school, or if I am the leader of a country, it will be very difficult for my ego to, if you are my follower, if you are working with me, it will be very difficult for me to promote you to my level and then tell, yes, you can do better, you can surpass me as well. That is very difficult for an ego to accept.
Well, it's not that difficult actually. I'll tell you that when out of all the people who I've mentored, uh, one of them is today the director of one of India's, if not India's best school, and that is Emerald Heights International in Indore. Uh, he was mentored by me on the request of his father because his father passed away. She was the educationist. The father and he had no idea about education. So the father said, "Will you please mentor him?" I said, "Of course, I'll mentor him." And I did mentor him. The school has done very well. He is doing extremely well. And today, what is the situation? Today, the situation is that when I am running into a problem, I'm not understanding because the world is changing. It's going past me. I phone him and ask him that please help me understand what's going on. How do I sort this out? So there's a role reversal. I was his mentor, now he's my mentor. So where is the ego problem in it?
Yes, that's actually better explained. It is easy for me to assimilate. That is actually, sir, very deep, and I'm sure I'll keep that for decades to come.
A lot of your a lot of your teachers uh, have been surpassed in success in the area which is their own area by the students they've had. And that is when the humanity part of it comes into play. The teacher doesn't keep saying, "No, I'm better than you," because as long as he keeps saying, "I'm better," it's like what Guru said, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, that, or what Guru Nanak said, that you will be known as Sikhs because you will be learners all your life. You can never feel that you have learned it all, that you know it all. You never know. You will never know everything. You will keep learning all your life. And what Guru Gobind Singh Ji said was that you have to serve. Until you serve, you cannot be served. Because if you don't know how to serve, you will not appreciate the people who are serving you. So, these are the kind of lessons which we should learn from.
Yes, sir. This is really deep. That first you need to have that compassion, you need to have that giving ability, you need to have that openness to give what you've learned and give what you are to somebody else, and then it will come back to you by the means of the world, by the laws of the universe. So, sir, this got me thinking, and I want to ask you that how are these skills? I've seen this in a lot of my teachers. I've been fortunate to have been mentored by such teachers, to be mentored by my director, Major General TPS Viraj, and I've seen it in them that they have this feeling of giving it all away. And what is the thing that develops the thing that we are talking about in teachers and in mentors?
It's basically that they are confident about their own selves. They're comfortable with themselves. They feel that they are not lacking in something. They are able to pass on because they have something. If they feel inadequate themselves, they will never pass on anything. They will hang on to whatever they have and they will keep everyone else down. That is the difference.
Yes, sir. It's,
Your director has seen the world. He has been in United Nations peacekeeping. He's been in the army in very sensitive areas. He's he's seen it all. He can afford to be generous with his time and his feelings for you.
yes, sir. So, sir, we've talked all about teaching, we've talked all about education. So, we focused on the teaching aspect. Now, I want to focus a bit on the student aspect. What are the qualities that a student must have to assimilate all the information? Because in a public school environment, especially in the best schools, a lot is going on. Not only in the, I'm not talking about activities, but all the personality development, all the atmosphere of the place that is having an impact on the student. So, what are the qualities that the student needs to have to assimilate all that information and ultimately become a responsible citizen? Second question related to this question is that what should the final goal of a student be except from the career? What should be the larger goal of a student?
So the first thing you asked is, uh, what did you ask the first one?
So, firstly, I
What?
asked that what are the qualities that a student needs to have to
Yes,
assimilate all
yes.
this?
So the qualities that need to be imbibed by the students in school are basically the soft skills. You see, the hard skills is what we get examined on it. So everyone is worried about the hard skills getting 80%, 90%, 100%. But the soft skills never get marked. But once you leave school, or even while you are in school, the person that you are and the person that you will become is not dependent on how much physics and chemistry and maths you know. It's on your soft skills. Unfortunately, because they are not examined, they are not taught. Now, I know that I teach soft skills in some schools, right down to Bhubaneswar, I go to teach soft skills. I go to Gwalior to teach soft skills because soft skills is what's going to make them into successful people. So that is very important. The second thing is that what is the second question you asked?
Secondly, I asked that student is obviously assimilating all the things, but what needs to be the main goal of the student? Like,
The main goal of the student should be a very simple. I don't know. I follow something which I believe in, and that is that you don't harm anyone and you help everyone you can. Help everyone whom you can, and don't deliberately harm. If that can become your pro or your religion or whatever you want to call it, then you are going to be a great asset to your society, to your country, and to the entire world.
Yes, sir. So, leading from this answer, I want to ask you one thing. When I was at the Doon School, recently I was at the Doon School, and I read uh, one. It was etched in stone. It was written, "An Aristocracy of Service." It was written by Arthur Foote. Do you know about that, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
As
I wrote the history of Gurukul.
Yes, yes. So, what do you want to talk about that? What are your views on that? Because service, if you're talking about India,
See, I'll tell you what happened. That people used to say that Doon School is an aristocratic school. It's a snobbish school. The people there think too much of themselves. They think they're superior to other people. Hood said, no, we are an aristocracy, but we are not an aristocracy in the sense that you are thinking of. We are an aristocracy of service. So, for example, when my father joined Doon School, uh, his father, that's my grandfather, who had been a student in HSC College, was told by Fort, he said, look, please don't tell your wife what we are going to be doing to your son here. Because here he will be exactly the same as everyone else. He will wear the same kind of clothes. He's not allowed to have anything expensive, no watch, shoes, tennis racket, thing. And he will have to work in the houses of the Dalits every week. And whenever there is a flood or there's any other kind of problem, he is going to be sent in a flood relief expedition because we are going to teach two things here. One is going to be service, and the other is going to be leadership. And it is the service part of it which he called aristocracy of service. And that's why I today, in today, what in 2006, what was it, 16, I established an organization called School of Opportunity. School of Opportunity was not actually a school, it was a way of offering opportunities to students who would not get those opportunities otherwise. For example, if we are doing the Oxford MUN in same university, we are charging the students for all meals for 3 days, stay, and the entire conference experience. We are charging 25,000. If you go to Oxford, and it's the same, it's the people from Oxford who are going to conduct this Oxford MUN in Pune, not us. We are just organized. There you will spend about 5 lakhs. Now, everyone can't spend 5 lakhs to go to Oxford for this MUN. It's never come to India. This is the first time it's coming to India. And we are bringing it not at 5 lakhs, bringing it at 25,000. So we are not sure whether we are going to even break even. But the purpose is to give opportunity to. So this is my whole thing, whether I'm doing the labs here, whether I'm doing leadership and adventure camps here for teachers or students. It is all to give them the opportunities to grow. And one of the things which I'm specializing in now is in geopolitics. So every group that comes to me does a session on geopolitics. And I am amazed to find that almost no student from almost any school has any idea of geopolitics. The only school which reacted very positively, they all reacted well during the conference, but which reacted positively even after, was MGD Jaipur. They have formed a geopolitical club, and their vice principal who had come here, she asks me for inputs every day so that they can discuss those inputs. Because geopolitics changes every day, it doesn't stay the same. Now, geopolitics is the best way of understanding what's happening in the world and increasing your general knowledge, and not listening to what comes in newspapers and TV. Because newspapers and TV is owned by the people who decide what they want to tell you and what you want to hear, not what is true at all. So, how do you learn what is true? So that is what I teach. And I tell them how to research it so that they keep up up to date on what is actually happening rather than what the newspapers or TV is telling them. Now, this is an area which I wish more people would take up, is geopolitics.
Geopolitics, as far as I know, it helps you. You also said that it helps you understand the current situation. That I asked you two, three questions during our talk. That why is such thing in a particular way in India, and you answered that from a geopolitical perspective, that about the north and south question, and that builds a strong understanding, that brings strong fundamentals, that why are we how we are now. So I want to ask you one more thing, that we were talking about, this all started with aristocracy of service. So service is one of the most important things. But service, when we talk about, the first thing that comes to your mind is not the thing that we are talking about. So obviously the Doon school, when I was to Doon school, when I went to Doon school, I saw that everybody is from a wealthy background at Doon school. But I saw that whenever you have to do the menial task, the small tasks, you have to get the pebbles from the paths that are there on the Doon school paths. You have to get the pebbles inside the auditorium, in the BML Munjal auditorium. The students are carrying those pebbles. So why is this service important? Like the motto of my school is also Vidya Vinay Vita. So obviously that humility is there. Vinay, humility. So, according to you, how should this humility be implanted in everybody so that they do service? So, what I'm asking is, what is your perspective on service?
The service is very important, and you're a Sikh boy where service is considered to be seva is a very, very important aspect. Because unless you have, it's like the person who tried serving Guru Gobind Singh Ji at the langar, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji refused to take it from him, saying that you have never served anyone. First, learn how to serve, then I will accept. You don't only look at serving people who are in a position senior to you, better than you. You have to look at serving everyone, humanity. You don't only go to the guru and serve him. You serve the beggar also. Now, what is service? Service, the definition of service is that you have to not confuse it with charity. Charity is when you take something from your parents and give it to somebody who needs it. That is charity. Service is when you yourself raise the resources and give your physical time to be able to help somebody, but in the process, more importantly, you are enriching yourself as a human. So it is a system of enriching yourself, making yourself a better human being, and in the process, somebody benefits. That's great. But the purpose in a school is not charity. The purpose in the school is service. So you need to actually look at service as something which is strengthening your own character before you look at what helps somebody else.
Yes. So it's a main part of every public school that is there in. I want to ask you one thing, that most of the public schools in India, at least a lot of them, in my knowledge, they were inspired by HSN College Lahore, that is Punjab, that was earlier called Punjab Chiefs College. So, as you've written the history of Doon School, you've also written the history of Delhi College. I want to ask you, summarize history, how public school education has been in British India as well as in the modern India.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Uh, in England, it started with the families, the landed families, the feudal families, the titled families. They were mainly spread across the rural areas, but they lived in London because that's where the port was, that's where the influence is, that's where the money is. So they had moved to London, and the eldest son unlike in India, inherited everything, the title and all the land. The second son joined the church because that was the next richest aspect of Britain, where you got a good promotion and you could make good money. And the third son and the fourth son, they would join the army, but not as a soldier. They used to buy a commission. Queen's commission could be bought, and you immediately became a captain. No lieutenants at all. Now, every child didn't want to become a soldier. Some of them were more literary minded. So they became what today we call housemaster. Now, the person who is sitting in London but has a huge uh, castle or palace in some remote part of England decides I can't maintain this. It's too expensive. I'm spending too much money maintaining it. I'm also having to maintain a house in London, a big house. So I would rather give that away in charity for a school. That's how the schools came up. The first schools came up because they were given the building, the main building came as charity for a school. But the village where they were situated, the villages where they were situated, the villagers could not afford those schools. So now come in the housemaster from amongst the sons who were not interested in joining the army. They got a settlement from their family and they built a house. They hired a dame and they started the boarding school system. So the admissions into these schools, even the best schools like Eton and Harrow and so on, were not made by the headmaster. They were made by the house because the headmaster could not offer accommodation, could only offer place in the class. So the housemasters were the very important people. They owned the houses, they made the admissions, they expelled children who didn't behave, and their job was not necessarily to teach, though they did teach. Their main job was character. So you had the starting of the public schools in England through this housemaster system. And gradually, people also became housemasters by rising in the ladder from. And later on, the schools started buying back their houses until they became uh, part of. So that was the beginning of what happened in England. In India, we had different types of schools. We had chiefs colleges. The first was R.K. Rajkumar College, Rajkot, and the Daly College. They were both 1870. Then came uh, Rajkumar College, Raipur, which was actually in Naugong at that time. And then came Mayo College. And lastly came HSM, which was in Ambala and then later shifted to Lahore. So you had the chiefs colleges who were training people to become prime ministers and ministers in the bigger states. You had railway school in Mussoorie, Weinberg Island. You had the army school in Dehradun called Royal Indian Military College. And this was the kind of education that the British were providing until the Doon School came along and said, no, we are going to be a public. We are not specializing in anything. We are not taking only Maharaja's children. And the strange thing was that though they said we are going to be secular and we are going to be open to admissions for everybody, who were the people who joined? Maharaja of Patiala joined, the Maharaja of Jean joined, the Maharaja of Kapurthala joined, the Maharaja of Jaipur joined, the Maharaja of Kashmir joined. How did all these people join? Because their parents were realized that this is an education system which they need, not to go to a chief's college necessarily. Then the first chief's college to decide to become a public school was Daly College. And along with them came a few others, including HSN College, Lahore. Aitchison College, Lahore's principal, became the first chairman of the IPSC. It was called the Headmasters Conference India at that time. And he expelled his own school in the first meeting because his board said, we are not going to allow our children to study with the children of teachers. So he expelled himself. Mayo College refused to join because they said, no, we are a royal college, we are not joining. Later on, Mayo College joined. Yeah, but it took them quite a long. IPS was started after the separation of India and Pakistan to continue with the kind of education that was being provided in Lahore by the Maharaja of Patiala encouraged the starting of IPS first in Patiala and then later on.
So, sir, you said the difference between Chiefs College and a public school. So, there is a distinction that the public school admitted children from any background. Could it be? It could be a teacher. It could be a serviceman. It could be a Maharaja. But the Chiefs College, they only admitted students who belong to a royal lineage. So, what was the difference?
They could only admissions were to people from the royal families, title families, or to their sardars who were given in writing permission to join by the Maharaja of that area, that he is a chief in our area and we would like his son.
Sir, what was the difference in the education being imparted in a public school and in a Chiefs College?
So Chief's College, first of all, had no curriculum. Like you have a regular curriculum and you're teaching all the subjects. No, Chief's College, the first Chief's colleges that came up. For example, I'll tell you both happened, what happened in Daly College and in Mayo College. That the chiefs would decide, someone would say, I want to do match today, and someone would say, no, I want to play hockey today, and someone say, I want to play polo today. So now the teachers had to try and balance that, keep everyone happy, because out of 365 days in the year, they would be lucky if they had a student there for 100 days, because they would keep going away for marriages, they would keep going away for ceremonies, they would keep going away for all kinds of things. They had other duties. So attending classes was a very minor part. And then they wanted to play polo, they wanted to play cricket. They were not so interested in studies, and yet you had to keep them in school and you had to try and teach them something also. So it was eventually what you got when you finished a Chief's College, when you graduated. It was a diploma in governance. You became capable of becoming a prime minister in a smaller state or a bigger state. So Jaipur state, for example, took into all its civil service in Jaipur only people who had graduated from a chief. Whereas people who went to a public school had no, they did their ISC, those days it was called Senior Cambridge. So they did their Senior Cambridge, which was, papers were set and marked in England, like any other school.
That is a huge history that we've come from to the education system that we have now in India. So, sir, I would like to conclude this conversation, and I must say that the things that I've grasped from this, obviously, my audience will learn about these things from you, but some of the things, most of the things, I'm going to keep with myself for decades. And I know these are going to help me in the problems and the challenges that I'm going to face in my life ahead. So, thank you so much, sir, for giving me your time and
Most
telling me the all the knowledge that you had gained from your 50 years of experience. It was truly a magnificent experience talking to you, sir. I'm eternally thankful to you, sir. Thank you so much.
thank you. Wishing you all the best in your life ahead.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed talking to Dr. Sumer Bahadur Singh. He's a man of wide experiences, vast experiences, and there's a lot to learn. If you really like this conversation, I urge you to subscribe to this channel so that we can bring better guests and better conversations to you. Because when you hit the subscribe button, when you hit that like button, when you post a comment, It motivates our team to get more such podcasts, and so that they can empower you, because today's youth is tomorrow's future.